Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into the eerie, shadow-filled mysteries of Bhangarh Fort. It's nestled deep in the Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan, India, and let me tell you, I am so excited to guide you through this one. We're going to peel back the layers of centuries-old myths, some incredibly spine-chilling local folklore, and actually some really surprising scientific truths to uncover what literally happened to this once thriving city. So let's just jump right in.
Entering the borders of Bhangarh before sunrise and after sunset is strictly prohibited. Now, you might be thinking this is just some local rumor or a handmade sign slapped up by a random security guard. But no, this is an official government warning from the Archaeological Survey of India. It sits right at the main gate, setting a very real and honestly very chilling stage for anyone daring enough to visit.
But, human curiosity almost always gets the better of us, right? Local folklore tells this absolutely terrifying story of three friends who decided to completely ignore that sign. They sneaked into the pitch-black ruins after dark. With just a weak flashlight cutting through that heavy darkness, one of the friends actually slipped and fell into a deep, dry well. Panic sets in, obviously. They somehow managed to pull him out and rush off to the hospital. But here's the crazy part. They never made it. Their car crashed on the way, and all three died instantly. Locals firmly believe this was no accident. To them, it was the deadly cost of ignoring the fort's ancient warning. The fort essentially collected its debt.
So how did a thriving city of 9,000 homes become this roofless ghost town? Well, there are two massive legends. The first one is about Baba Balu Nath, an ascetic who said the fort could be built on one strict condition. Its shadow must never, ever touch his home. But the king's grandson built a massive 7-story palace, broke the rule, and doomed the entire city. The second legend? Well, it's a lot darker. It's about Tantric Singya, a master of black magic. He tried to bewitch the beautiful Princess Ratnavati with a cursed potion, but she totally caught on and threw the potion onto a boulder. That bewitched rock then literally rolled over and crushed him. With his dying breath, he cursed the city to absolute ruin, denying its people even the chance of reincarnation. Wild, right?
And the crazy thing is, this isn't just ancient history. Tourists and locals report terrifying modern encounters all the time. We're talking about the sounds of women crying and bangles breaking in the dead of night, or people catching a sudden, unexplained whiff of perfume lingering exactly where the princess supposedly walked. One story even claims a black cat stalked a visitor's car for over 100 kilometers. But arguably the creepiest one? A journalist whose scooter died mysteriously, only for a total stranger to start it without even touching it, whispering, "They want you." I mean, these stories are so intense that even the security guards refuse to stay inside the gates after dark.
Okay, so we really have to ask, are these invisible threats actually real? Are the spirits of a princess and a dark wizard truly wandering around these ruins? Well, before we can understand the fear of supernatural invisible threats, it actually really helps to look at the invisible threats that surround us every single day.
Because, much like unseen spirits, digital threats invisibly track your data all the time. Think about it. When you connect to public Wi-Fi, hackers can expose your activity just like that. Your internet service providers are quietly monitoring exactly what websites you open. And advertisers? They are constantly tracking your search behavior to see what you're interested in. Just as visitors to Bhangarh might seek out mystical protection from what they can't see, modern military-grade encryption acts as a real-world shield against these very real, modern invisible threats to hide your IP address.
All right, let's get back to the ruins. Section 2, the historical twist. Uncovering the truth behind the legends. We're pivoting away from the folklore now because the actual, documented truth takes a massive, totally unexpected turn.
Here is the absolutely crucial point. There are zero historical records. Literally none. There are no stone inscriptions, no contemporary documents, no royal decrees that ever even mention Princess Ratnavati, Tantric Singya, or Baba Balu Nath. We don't even know whose daughter this princess supposedly was. The entire foundation of this haunting is built on characters that, quite frankly, likely never existed. They are pure folklore, stories that just got more and more dramatic with every single generation that passed them down.
But wait a minute, if the ghosts aren't real, why do so many people physically feel pure terror when they visit? Why do they get cold sweats and that awful feeling of a dark presence? Well, it all comes down to physics, specifically a scientific phenomenon called infrasound. These are sound waves that sit below the 20 Hz frequency limit of human hearing. So you can't hear them, but your body absolutely feels them. They cause physical vibrations inside your body that trigger dizziness, sudden anxiety, and, yep, that super creepy sensation that someone is watching you from the shadows.
To really put into perspective just how powerful this is, let's look at the frequency of 19 Hz. Back in the 1980s, there was this British engineer named Vic Tandy.
He was working completely alone in his lab when he suddenly felt this overwhelming sense of dread. He even saw a gray shadow out of the corner of his eye. Terrified, the guy thought he'd genuinely seen a ghost, but the very next day, he figured it out. He discovered that a newly installed extractor fan in the lab was vibrating at exactly 19 hertz. As soon as he turned that fan off, the infrasound stopped and the ghost completely vanished.
So, how does this relate to our haunted fort? Well, Bhangarh is essentially a massive, natural generator for these exact low frequencies. Think about the wind howling through thousands of old roofless stone buildings. That creates infrasound. On top of that, the fort is located in Seismic Zone 4 in Alwar. That means there's a high risk of constant minor earth movements, micro-earthquakes, and literally rocks tumbling down the surrounding Aravalli Hills. Visitors are walking in there and just physically vibrating with infrasound. It perfectly explains that sudden, overwhelming sense of dread.
Now, you add to that the immense power of suggestibility. Suggestibility is the psychological state where being told what to expect physically alters your actual perception. If you're constantly told before you even arrive that Bhangarh is the most haunted place in India, you've watched the viral videos, you've heard the ghost stories, your brain immediately shifts into haunted mode. You expect to see ghosts, so your brain alters how you process your surroundings. A totally normal swaying branch suddenly looks exactly like a reaching arm.
Researchers actually proved this in a completely fascinating 2008 experiment at Goldsmiths University in London. They put 79 people into a completely empty, plain white room. They told them it was a haunted room equipped with hidden frequency devices. The results were absolutely staggering. 20% of the people felt a presence, and 8% felt pure terror. But here is the massive shocker. People felt this terror even when the researchers left the hidden devices completely turned off. Just the sheer expectation of experiencing a ghost made their brains physically manufacture the fear. And this brings us to a fascinating evolutionary trick of the human mind, called pareidolia. This is our brain's evolutionary tendency to perceive familiar patterns, like human faces or figures, in totally random shapes or shadows. We are hardwired to do this to help us survive, but it works a little too well sometimes. When you're standing out there looking into the dark, crumbled corners of the Bhangarh ruins, your brain is frantically trying to make sense of the random shadows and broken pillars. It literally tricks you into seeing faces and ghostly figures that simply are not there.
Moving on to Section 3, the real historical truth, wildlife and the Great Famine. Okay, so we've debunked the supernatural elements, but what is actually out there in the dark? And what truly destroyed this once beautiful city of 9,000 homes?
Let's compare the actual sounds of the night. The myth tells us it's crying women, horrifying screams, and phantom footsteps. But the reality? It's just nature. Those terrifying, blood-curdling cries echoing off the stone walls at night, they are actually just hyenas calling out to each other. And those heavy, mysterious footsteps shaking the foliage that people hear? That's just local monkeys moving through the trees from the nearby Sariska Tiger Reserve.
Which brings us right back to that official government sign from earlier. The government didn't put it up because of a curse. The Sariska Tiger Reserve is only 50 kilometers away. At night, Bengal tigers, leopards, and hyenas regularly roam the fort's grounds. You combine that wildlife with the fact that these dilapidated, roofless ruins are a severe structural collapse risk, plus the area has absolutely zero lighting, and you have a recipe for disaster. That warning is strictly an administrative safety notice against wild animals and falling rocks. It completely 100% debunks the ghost theory. So if it wasn't a curse, what really killed the city? The answer lies in the year 1783. The true villain wasn't a dark wizard, but an extreme climate event known as the Chalisa famine. Driven by totally devastating El Niño conditions, a brutal drought struck northern India. It was so severe that survival in a water-scarce region like Bhangarh just became impossible. The population didn't vanish in a puff of black magic. They were literally forced to abandon their beautiful homes and migrate just to find water and stay alive.
Section 4. Why the myths persist. Our brains prefer stories over facts. This brings us to a really fascinating final point. If the science of infrasound and the historical records of the 1783 famine are so perfectly clear and well documented, why do we absolutely refuse to let the ghost stories go?
Well, it all comes down to the psychology of myths. On one hand, we have the boring fact. A devastating natural drought caused a mass migration. It's sad, it's totally random, and is completely out of our control. But on the other hand, we have the satisfying myth. A super dramatic tale of a beautiful princess, a wicked wizard, black magic, and a city-destroying curse. Human psychology vastly prefers a satisfying narrative with a clear villain and a direct cause over the chaotic, tragic reality of a natural disaster. Our brains just crave that order and story.
So what we have today is essentially a self-sustaining ecosystem of fear. Like we said, the human brain craves that narrative order in a chaotic world. Add to that the fact that the entire local economy now depends heavily on millions of tourists arriving to see India's most haunted place. Nobody has a financial incentive to debunk the myth. And finally, social media algorithms heavily reward supernatural, sensational, viral experiences over boring historical truth. If you say you found a ghost, you go viral. If you say you found a hyena, well, you get scrolled past.
Let's end on this truly powerful thought from Marie Curie. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. The ruins of Bhangarh aren't hiding demons. They're simply waiting to be illuminated by science and history. But it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If our minds can so easily invent ghosts out of the wind and shadows here, what other everyday monsters are we creating in our own lives, purely out of fear of the unknown? Stay curious, keep seeking the truth behind the shadows, and we'll see you in the next explainer.